Howdy, howdy. Welcome into the Longleaf Baseball Podcast. Welcome in. Is that good? How do you start a podcast? I hear a lot of welcome in. I hear, hey, folks. I hear, welcome in. I hear a lot of different versions. I'm not sure what I like yet. I'm doing the generic, welcome in. Here we are. That's what we got. I don't know how to start a podcast. I mean, I know, but for the first one, I'm not sure how much background to give about what the site's all about who I am. Louis C.K. has a really famous start to one of his stand-up specials where he starts with, welcome everyone, and then he's like, not everyone, because most people are in China, and then, no, most people are dead, actually, is a whole 10-minute bit that I've just summarized for you. We're here to talk baseball in Raleigh. I assume most people checking in here know about Raleigh, live in Raleigh, have seen it. It's possible that someday, once Raleigh secures MLB franchise, that national reporters are looking back on this and trying to figure out, all right, give you a sense of what Raleigh is, and I'm sure that'll come through anyway. The point of our podcast here, the point of this site is to assume that Raleigh is getting Major League Baseball. I'm not going to make the case, not directly anyway. Other people are doing that better. I think it's a fair debate. Nashville's probably a front runner just for name brand's sake. I don't think the under the hood metrics support Nashville as much as Raleigh, and I think Raleigh will win out. And so I'm just going to assume we are getting that team and try to live in the buildup to having a franchise in what is now my hometown, which would be great. I used to joke that getting a baseball team is my retirement plan, and looks like it's coming a little before that. I hope. I'm not that old. And I hope it doesn't take that long for this to come to fruition. But as you'll see on the website, if you haven't taken a look yet, I've got topics from, is it okay to be a fan of more than one team? What should team names be? That's a pretty popular one. Where should the ballpark be? I haven't delved into yet, but I'm going to be doing some in-depth stuff on that. I want to start out with just talking about my take on takes, which I think is just exactly semantic enough for me to enjoy. And that is that I find my favorite options for these questions, like team name or ballpark location, or many other aspects to just sportdom in general. My takes are usually not the most popular take, and I'm sure that's true for many of you. So I think it's just kind of interesting to point out that, where I side on what team name should be is probably not what the team name is going to be. And where I think the ballpark should go, quote unquote, me, is not where it's going to go. And we probably will differ in opinions. And in the end, it becomes a generic choice because that's the nature of deciding for a general population, right? You have to do something that's in the middle. And I just think that's kind of interesting that considering all the names, I'm sure that whatever my favorite is kind of not in the running. I still think it's worth talking about. What if my little opinion has an effect on enough people, enough 8 of you, and it simmers all the way up to the actual decision? Be pretty fun. Unlikely. That's my take on takes. Sort of, I acknowledge up front that my argument sometimes will not be what ends up being the ultimate answers because I'm making an argument that I think is coolest or most interesting, and generally what's most interesting is not what's most generic, right? Same thing with music taste, movie taste, all the rest of that. Let's move on to just what you can expect from this site. I had planned to have a guest here in the first episode, but it's fallen through a couple times, and I think maybe it makes more sense for it just to be me anyway. So you've heard the deal, what the site is for, talking Major League fandom in a town, in a city before we get Major League Baseball. And the piece I'm working on right now, so hasn't hit yet, is just thinking through what a baseball town looks like. And for most people, a baseball town looks like a town that's had baseball for a long time. But that's a little what we'd call endogenous in academia, right? That is because it is. It's just kind of measuring the same thing over and over again. So I'm interested in what a baseball town looks like before it gets a baseball team. Can you kind of predict what kind of town would grow into a baseball town? I don't know off the top of my head, even though I'm a Cubs fan. I think St. Louis is a pretty good example of that is a town that seems like it would be a baseball town. It's hard to tell. St. Louis Cardinals have been there forever, so we're never going to play that out. but there's something about that town that seems like it would be a baseball town no matter what. And I think there are some things about Raleigh that hold true for that. And I'm gonna try to flesh that out. How about that saying? Flesh. It's like you have a skeleton, and then you're putting the flesh on the idea. It's gross. Try to flesh that out soon. The other particular piece I'll mention here, which is the first thing I posted, is just about how you can be a fan of more than one team at a time. And I think there's plenty of stuff that I didn't write about that's involved with that concept. I was recently in Newark, partially by choice, I suppose, but I was recently in Newark and talking to a Mets fan waiting for a delayed flight. And he was talking about how his Mets fandom is really passed down to him from his dad and from his granddad. So it'd be pretty hard for him to imagine rooting for a secondary team. Even if he does now live in North Carolina, it'd be pretty tough for him to foresee giving up the Mets for some North Carolina, for some Raleigh team. He happened to be in Chapel Hill. Hey, Scott. But I think that's true for a lot of people. I'm a special weird case in the middle because I'm a lifelong Cubs fan, but I didn't grow up around Chicago. I grew up in Colorado playing baseball before the Rockies were there. And so while I've been a Cubs fan my whole life, and I'm the kind of fan that can't conceive of having a second team that I root for just as hard, it's a little bit easier for me to imagine giving up the Cubs since I'm not born and raised in Chicago, and my dad wasn't a Cubs fan. My dad and my whole dad's family were, what am I pointing at? Yankee stuff. I've got a bunch of Yankee memorabilia. You can't see this little pin from the World Series. And this is my great uncle who was a head scout for the Yankees. And there's a lot of Yankee lore in my family. You can imagine how my granddad, I don't know, responded to me being a Cubs fan. I think he was just glad I was a baseball fan because most older people assume the kids don't like the baseball anymore. He's a guy from the Bronx. He didn't sound like that. But plenty of people are fans of multiple teams. And so I imagine I couldn't do that. And I would probably slowly just let the Cubs fandom go away and become a fan of the Raleigh Rhinos or whatever. It's not a serious option, but it's been suggested and I like it because I like alliteration. It's hard. It's hard to fight alliteration. It just feels so good. The Raleigh Rhinos, the endangered white rhino that doesn't live in North Carolina. Is there a white rhino at the North Carolina Zoo? I was talking about that zoo recently. It's the largest zoo by acreage, I think, in the world. Going to open a new tiger exhibit soon, I think, too. Go to the zoo. Get some inspiration for what the Raleigh team name should be. Claim that zoo is close enough to Raleigh, we can take ownership of one of those animals. We have plenty of native animals. Don't worry, we'll get into that. My most recent team name post. You know what I'm doing? I'm trying to avoid the obvious stuff. So I started with team names about trees. I like dogwoods. And then I just did a whole post on just dogs, the variations of dogs, Carolina dogs, Raleigh dogs. Raleigh hounds is my favorite. And my little dream, you'll see my take being probably not a general public kind of take. My dream is to somehow have hounds and dogwood trees both involved at the same time, right? So I guess you'd have to be more generic. It'd have to be the Raleigh dogs or the Raleigh dogwoods, and then you could still have a dog mascot. Or the other way around, I think is even better, where you have the Raleigh dogs, but the mascot is a dogwood tree. Just picture that tree dancing around. It's good stuff. Plenty of stuff to be done with team names. I've just hit on some trees and some dogs so far on the site, so please check those out. Please comment below anything that I'm saying here. Comment here on this YouTube channel. I don't have comments on the webpage because I'm just not ready yet. Not really ready to moderate with what I'm writing about so far. It's pretty short stuff, nothing controversial. So jump in here and send me some comments in the YouTube channel, and that's a place I'll be checking for some interaction and appreciating any interaction. Feel free to volunteer. I mean, I've got a million little story ideas, but feel free to volunteer some up. I'm happy to listen. I'm happy to have some give and take. Like I said, going forward, I'll probably have guests on here for future podcasts. And the format just to be, here's what I've already argued. I already have the pieces out there. Why am I wrong about that? Or what do you like about that? That sort of thing with different fans, some from Raleigh, mostly from Raleigh, some not. So I hope you'll tune in again for the next podcast here at Longleaf Baseball. Oh, before I go, I should address I have a piece where I talk about how I chose the name, but I'm wearing a t shirt around lately that says longleafbaseball.com on it. And so I'm getting a lot of questions. Why did you decide that? It's our state tree, longleaf pine. It seemed North Carolina enough without being too specific to preclude me from talking about any other possible baseball names or locations or anything like that. And I just kind of like it, longleaf baseball. Also, a lot of other stuff is taken, right? There are plenty of baseball organizations and corporations. There's baseball leagues. Oak City, that Longleaf. There's a Longleaf baseball, Little League baseball in Wilmington area, I think. So a lot of the baseball stuff is taken. So yeah, I like it anyway. But Longleaf baseball, that's where we are. Tell everybody about us. Appreciate it. Wait, before I go, how do you say goodbye? I gotta wave. Waving's dumb. Gotta get this lamp out of here too, huh? Waving's not good. Signing off. Sign it. Saluting. I'm not gonna saliva. I'm not gonna salute. Take care. Be well. Oh, be well. That's what I always say. I always say be well. Be well.